People are so irrational. I mean, we're probably the only living creatures on the planet who routinely and knowingly work against our own self-interest. I mean, we're probably the only living creatures on the planet who routinely and actively work towards our own detriment. We're also infamous at overestimating our abilities. And my favorite, we're terrible at predicting the actions of our future selves. But all of this is good. Why? Because it makes us predictable. Which brings me to my topic today. I have with me today the top 3 fragrances that I think should be discontinued. Now, these fragrances have been around for a while. Some of them have been around for decades. So they should be discontinued. It's not that these fragrances are bad. These fragrances are actually pretty good. Actually, come to think of it, these fragrances are actually really, really good. And so they should be discontinued. And these fragrances are unique. And that ties them together in one particular way, in that they're unique, that you can't actually tell what decade they're from. And so they should be discontinued. First up, we have this. Sirius Rouge by Givenchy. This is unique. This one is as unique now as it was when it was first released back in 1995. That cactus and pimento and carnation combination is sweet but not sweet. It's mysterious and playful at the same time, and contrary to popular opinion, it's actually really, really good in the summertime. But only if you're going out and only if it's at nighttime. Yep, it works. This uniqueness also means that the decade in which the fragrance was born can't really be easily distinguished. And that means that you can't put a timestamp on it. And when you can't put a timestamp on something, well, that's the very definition of timeless. My first experience with this one was back in the late 90s. My best friend had a bottle and I loved it. I loved it. He would wear it and I'd be like, damn, what is that? And he'd be like, oh, it's this thing. Red bottle. And I'm like, yeah, that smells like it should come from a red bottle. And so I bought my own, and actually I've been through about 3 bottles. I should say 3.5, because I've also been through this little one here, which I've kept for good measure because this one's from 2005. And I'm a bit biased with this fragrance, I must admit. It's because this was the fragrance I was wearing when I met the girl who is now my wife. And so I'm, I guess, a bit biased, as I mentioned, but at least I'm aware of my bias. So there. So this may have celebrated its 25th birthday this year, but I reckon if it was re-released with new packaging and a new name and a little bit of marketing push behind it, it would be fresh, it would be unique, and it would probably spawn a plethora of clones. I'm going to say it right now. Yeah, everyone would be trying to copy this if it was brand new. Mark my words. I'll stand by that. So please, Givenchy, discontinue this fragrance. Next on the chopping block, we have Santos de Cartier Concentré. Not the normal Santos de Cartier. This is the Concentré. This one to me is the definition, is actually probably the definition of a masculine scent. It is strong, but it's not overpowering. It's confident, but it's not brash. It's a beautifully cut suit, which instead of hiding, it actually complements the well-toned and muscular physique underneath it. And this bottle is really awesome too. I really love it. It's one of my favorite bottles. It just looks cool. It feels nice in the hand. These little striations on the bottle are actually really cool as well. This is the newest bottle design. It's been through a few, I think. I think it's been through about 3 different bottle designs since it was originally released. This is the latest one. I do have the older bottle, the previous generation to this, where the atomizer is built into the bottle itself. It is exactly the same juice. It smells exactly the same. Maybe it doesn't project as much, but I don't want it to. This fragrance was released in 1982. And fragrances that were released in that time all share a certain scent profile. which really allows you to match the decade from which the scent came. This distinction is what causes people to use the words like dated and throwback, which I really dislike. Now, let me tell you something. When I used to rock this on the regular, it was always young dudes in their 20s who'd come up to me and be like, "Hey man, what cologne are you wearing?" And I'd be like, "Well, it's called Santos de Cartier Concentrate," like a ponce. But, you know, some people would be like, "Oh man, this is the best thing I've smelled ever." And there was a couple of guys who actually, on the spot, pulled out their phones. They were like, "Where'd you buy it from?" Like, "I got it from this website." And they went out and they purchased it right on the spot. Dudes in their 20s, believe it or not. And people refer to this as dated. I have a theory. And the theory is this. The fact that young men in their early 20s are digging this kind of scent means something. It really means that this scent can't be dated anymore. And here's the reason why. When this fragrance was released, I would have been about 4 years old. Now, I'm giving away my age here, but whatever. And if my dad was wearing this as I was growing up, when I actually hit my 20s, then I would have associated this scent profile and similar scents to it with my dad's generation. That would have made this scent profile dated or throwback-ish for me and all the other people who are in my age range. Now, let's fast forward to today. 20-year-olds now grew up smelling the fragrances on their dads, which was released in probably the early 2000s, right? So, I mean, people do wear fragrances that were released earlier than that, of course, but when new fragrances are released, they have a marketing push behind them and they have advertising, and so they're everywhere for a while, so they get quite popular pretty quickly. So, you know, dudes are going to be wearing them, and it's going to be the scent that you're going to smell on most people most of the time in that particular era. So the 20-year-olds of today are going to think that the fragrances that were released in the early 2000s are the ones that are dated. And that makes sense, which means that this thing is fresh. And with a bit of marketing, I think young dudes will be all over it. So please, please, Cartier, discontinue this fragrance. Is this getting confusing? Yeah, I hope so. Because next is this one, Zeno by Davidoff. This one in no way at any time of the history of the world, or as long as this thing has been around anyway, this thing is not for anyone under the age of 35. No way. It just isn't. If you were 10 and you sprayed this on yourself, you would automatically be 35 or more. As men age, they start to develop their own odor. It's like an odor of age. It's like when you walk into an old person's house and, you know, that smell. I'm not saying that Zeno smells like that, but it certainly does give off that vibe. It's the vibe I'm talking about. It's not the actual smell. It's a beautiful smell. I absolutely, absolutely love it. But it gives off that vibe. And if I could describe it in words, that vibe would be a mature comfort. That's what I'd call it. Another word I'd use is Bakelite. And I swear this cap is made of Bakelite. I'm not playing, but like I reckon it's made of Bakelite. I think old phones were made of material like this. It's a terrible cap, by the way. You can't even hold it by the cap because it'll just fall. If you don't know what Bakelite is, then no soup for you, I guess. It's the creation that solves many problems and it suits many occasions, and it's toxic in large doses. I'm talking about Bakelite. And Zeno too, yes. It's toxic in large doses. You don't want to spray too much of this stuff. It's a beast. It's a beast. The original ad campaign for this, when it was released in 1986, believe it or not, they said it was the fragrance of desire. Now, I don't disagree with that. Yes, okay. It's a fragrance of desire. It's not the fragrance of desire. And the desire that they're talking about is different to the desire in the marketing paraphernalia. The desire that they're talking about here, it's the kind of desire that is between a couple who have been married for over 10 years and maybe their kids are over at a sleepover somewhere, or they've gone out for the night. It's that kind of desire. It's not the kind of desire that you'd be looking for in a club or something like that. If people still go out clubbing, I don't know. As I mentioned, this fragrance was released in 1986. But to me, it smells like 1946. Not that I was ever there, but that's what I imagine men to smell like in that time. A time of joy and relief for much of the world. It was a time for rebuilding, It was a time of hope where the future looked bright. The future looked like it could be whatever you wanted it to be, and so young people really wanted to go there. And that's what this really smells like. A moment in history where every day was better than the one before it. Now, this may mean that Zeno has a pungence of the times of age, but as we all know, given enough time, everything old will become new again. And that's the beauty of Zeno. So please, Davidoff, discontinue this fragrance. As always, I'm hopeless at titling my videos. Some people think I do it on purpose, but we have one more. Just because, okay? Now, before I show you this one, I have to say I've gotten mad compliments from this one, and I'm probably the reason why sales of this one have increased exponentially in my area. Every time I wear this, people are like, damn, what is that? I'm like, it's this thing. And they're like, whoa, where did you get that from? I'm like, oh, I got it from the local shop. And then when they see the price, well, it's an easy decision to make. Here we have Gentleman by Oscar de la Renta. Man. Champagne, cardamom, and, wait, cardboard? Or is that a hint of dried grapefruit? This is what a suit smells like, not cardboard. This is what a suit smells like. Actually, no. This is what a tuxedo smells like. Tuxedos should be made with woven threads that have this fragrance embedded in them. This is for an occasion. It's for a soiree, a ball, an extravaganza. It's what I imagine the original James Bond to smell like. It's again, like these other fragrances that I talked about before, unique in that you can't quite place it in time accurately. I thought this was a classic. I thought it was a relic of the times long gone before, and I was like, wow, I found me a hidden gem. But the joke was on me because this was released in 2016. However, it was released as an homage to its namesake, Oscar de la Renta, who is widely known in the fashion world as the gentleman of fashion, who probably spent a lot of time in suits and tuxedos, probably at soirees. But he's dead. And so are many of the reasons why one would wear a tux. It seems like the human race is racing away from all of that, racing towards a red light with no particular place to go, racing to modernity, racing to an ever-increasing state of the present, attempting no attachment to its past and envisaging no hope towards the future. A gentleman doesn't race, because a gentleman is elegant, and elegance is dignified, meaning that elegance is worthy of dignity. And as a wise man once wrote, dignity is the only intangible that is as scarce as it is valueless. And that means that there's not much of it and it's still worthless. Perhaps because it can't be commodified. Perhaps, and unimportant. What's important to know is you don't have it. So, is this a fragrance for dead people? Or for gentlemen who don't yet exist? Either way, now's not the time. So please, discontinue this fragrance. Discontinue all of the fragrances that I've talked about, because they have dignity and therefore are worthless in this increasingly vapid and bombastic world. Discontinue these fragrances so we can mourn them, speak highly of them at online eulogies, and commoditize their scarcity. Discontinue them all. But wait until I get a few backup bottles.